This is another great role and another great character in a career that's just kind of littered with them for you. I wondered, what's the kind of decision process for you? Like when it comes to taking on different roles, do you have a sort of set process that you like to follow, or is every script and every character and project kind of follow their own route in some ways?
Yeah, I think be open-minded always, because, you know, that's the kind of industry we work in. It's so varied. And then the biggest thing is, would I watch it? Would I watch it? Would it be something that I'd want to sort of, you know, watch and go, oh, I wish I was in that. And if it's very readable, you know, it's kind of, sometimes you can start reading a script and even by page 10 you're like, I'm not into this. You know, just because it's personal taste. And with Insomnia, it was like, can I get the next episode now? It was a real joy to sort of like go into a brand new world as well.
And in terms of relating to her kind of mental and physical state, and I know obviously it's not quite the same as Insomnia, which is a very real, very serious thing, but we've all been exhausted, we've all been tired and had to go to work when we're just shattered. Yeah. Could you kind of lean on those days at least to kind of try and understand exactly where she kind of is in this? Yeah,
completely. I think we all understand or have had a bout of sleep deprivation. And it's usually when something massive's going on in your life, and that's why you can't sleep. You know, I remember the night before getting married, I was like, sleep, you've got the longest, biggest day of your life tomorrow. And I couldn't get to sleep. Or, you know, Christmas Eve. Oh, my good Lord. Like Christmas Eve as a child, trying to sleep, you're just like, oh, gosh, I can't, because you're just so excited. So I think we all have an idea of what that's like. Obviously, I looked into Insomnia in a different sort of light and realise that is something that people, you know, suffer with in a real way, and there's ways of treating it, but it's very difficult because, you know, it's so specific to people individually. This was kind of, you know, created by Sarah's world, and even when we get to the end, you sort of like go, okay, that's within the realms of Sarah's imagination.
My problem is I can never sleep when I've got like an early start. If I've got like a flight and I've got to be up at 4, I can't sleep.
Flight thing.
Oh, it's terrible.
You're kind of up at 1.
I know.
And you go, oh, fine, I've still got... And then you try and force yourself back to sleep. I know.
Why can't I just...
I know.
It's so frustrating. But do you also think in terms of like relating to the character, because there's the birthday milestone, she's obviously approaching 40, do you think that's something that is quite anxiety ridden, isn't it, birthday milestones? They naturally cause a sort of sense of self-reflection, I find.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're hitting any sort of milestone, your 21st, your 18th, your 16th, even back then, you kind of feel like you're really growing up, don't you? And it means that you can do things. You know, once you hit like an 18-year-old or a 21st, you're kind of going, oh, well, at least I can like legally do that or legally do this. When you start getting to 40, I think back to what I thought of 40-year-olds when I was younger, and in my head they were like, oh my God, ancient. Then you get to 40 and go, it is not what I thought at all. And, you know, it is something that I didn't fear at all. I feel like I was born 40 to begin with. I've always had that kind of like old school kind of vibe about myself, but it's a privilege, you know, denied to many, and I keep saying it, but it's true, and that's how I feel about it. I think, you know, it'd be an absolute joy to get to 50, to get to 60, to get to 70. So, yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I watched a coming of age, like teen drama recently, and it was the first time I watched it and realised I sided with the parents, and I was like, oh no,
wow, there you
I
go.
know.
Yeah, I mean, we all do it. Yeah. You know, all I've talked about today is the weather, because it's raining.
Yeah. Yeah, but one of the things, another thing I loved about this, I love the kind of, it's one of my favourite things anyway, especially in like thrillers, is this kind of unreliable narrator trope. So when you don't quite trust the kind of protagonist, who's the kind of, in some ways, your entry point. Was that quite fun to play around with here? Because obviously she's so tired. We start questioning her judgment and her actions in some regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest sort of, you know, there's such a different vibe in Insomnia between day and night. So you see her going to work and trying to keep her stuff together and be professional and all that kind of stuff. And then the nighttime hits and we're in some sort of psychological thriller that doesn't sort of exist in that space. So I loved the contrast of that. I thought that was really clever. And actually, the way in which they've edited it and, you know, the camera work has been done, it's really enhanced everything. So they've done a lot of that work for me, which is obviously amazing. To have that kind of, you know, contrast that sits in what feels like a domestic normal life and world, and you feel like you can relate to it. It feels authentic. You've got kids running around and all that kind of stuff, and then nighttime hits and she's sort of like floating like towards the door.
In regards to not always trusting her so much. I mean, this is a really wanky question, but I asked this recently.
Oh, can we swear?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
I asked this to Colin Farrell recently, and I got a really wanky answer, to be fair as well. But
I'm
on the subject of not trusting a kind of lead role, I'm interested, can characters have like secrets from the actor playing them? Can they almost take on a life of their own to some degree?
Explain that again.
Well, because obviously as an audience member,
Yeah.
there's some moments where I'm not quite sure if I trust her judgment and
Oh,
stuff.
right,
And I wondered as
okay.
an actor, do you almost feel sometimes you can't trust your own character in a sense that can they almost become their own thing, or are you always them? Does that make sense? I told you it was wanky.
Wow, mate, that is a wanky one.
It's pretty wanky, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but I'm really trying to get an answer for you. I'm trying to pull it from somewhere. I mean, I suppose my only answer to that is we film out of sorts, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're never really filming in order. So sometimes you're having to track back or track forward and, how is she feeling? What's her thought process now? And then all of a sudden you go to shoot something on the other side of it and you're like, oh, but I've already shot that. And so there is a lot of complexity in terms of, what you're doing with the character and their thought process, and if you agree with it. I have no idea if that's answered that question.
I was to ask a bit about Tom Cullen as well.
Yeah.
Because I love Tom. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and actually I'm quite pleased he's not on this junkie because we just speak about football pretty much the whole
Oh,
time.
I'm happy to talk about football.
Who do you support?
Notts County.
Oh, Notts County.
Yeah,
Nice.
shocked you then.
No, I thought you were going to say Forest.
I know. I mean, Forest have a place in my heart, obviously. But yeah, I'm a County fan.
Well, the black and white. I think they're the first teams of the black and white
Juventus.
stripes before
Yeah.
Juve. They copied them.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I could talk about football. Day.
See, we could do the football chat.
Yeah. But Tom, because obviously in this you've got to
Yeah.
play. Because I always find it interesting when you play alongside a kind of you're supposed to be in a marriage that's lasted such a long time.
Yeah.
There's a shorthands that come with long-term relationships. So I'm just, what was it like, kind of establishing that with an actor in what I guess quite a short period of time?
Yeah, and I hadn't met Tom before. Weirdly, my husband Johnny knows Tom because Tom's Welsh, and they all know each other. But they do. They'd met before, and so that was nice. There was like a bit of a connection there. But Tom's just a very laid-back, humble guy, as you well know. He's just a really nice guy to hang out with, and a very supportive actor. He wanted to change different things with the character to make it more authentic and to make his character stronger and all those kind of things. And that ran throughout the entire show for everybody. There was so much collaboration going on and so much consideration, people turning up early to do rehearsals and, so it was lovely. But I think, Tom's in a marriage, I'm in a marriage. We get what it's about. We get what love is. And I think just trying to bring that to the screen was, quite easy in that way. What's hard is that, there's so much that goes wrong.
You're Johnny a Forest fan.
He
is.
Yeah, he is.
Did he make a documentary?
He made I Believe in Miracles.
That's a brilliant film, by the way.
It is a brilliant film. He's a Merthyr Town fan first and foremost. But yeah, he's still on the board at Forest, so he's very much involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they stayed up, so that's all.
Yeah,
good.
thank God.
And of course, Insomnia is a Paramount series.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know because there's so many streaming platforms and kind of places now for content. I just wondered that as an audience member, I'm kind of overwhelmed with how much brilliant stuff there is to kind of watch. What's it like as an actor being in the industry? Does it feel a bit like there's more opportunity, more roles out there than there ever has been as a result of the kind of increase in content?
Do you know what? I'm sure there'll be actors that will be screaming at me going, nope. And I wouldn't blame them because it does feel like there's been especially this year, I think because of the strikes and because of, budgets and lots of varying, reasons, there's been a lack of production going on. But you're right, there's jobs and streamers and channels all over the shop. I think we're all trying to get used to the new way of telly, and sometimes they drop everything, sometimes they carry on with that weekly. Some people love that, some people don't. You're never going to please everybody. Not everyone's always going to get too invested in what you're doing. So I think you've just got to concentrate and knuckle down on what it is you're into, and follow that sort of path, because there is no sort of answer to this. It's creative. It shouldn't feel that restricted either. I think we watch telly on our phones. Yeah. So you're going from, huge widescreens to tiny little phones. We've got to consider how people are watching your shows. So there's just, you just got to go out there and make the TV and films that you can and enjoy it. I think that's the crux of it, really.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey!